All right, so hi, everyone. Let's start with a quick poll. How many people here are user researchers? Hand up. We've got a couple. How many people here come from companies who have user researchers? OK, there's a good few of you. That's nice. OK, so I'm sure that you heard earlier from some of the talks today that improving the quality of your app is a really great way to boost the star rating or your user retention. Many to the earlier talks today kind of spoke to that. You would have heard Ricardo and Alexei talk about how app quality was really important and how you can use Android Vitals to improve the quality of your app after launch. But what I want to talk to you about today is the process that informs all of that, the process that helps you ship a high-quality app in the first place. So rather than kind of going with your gut and going to the market hoping for the best, this is about using user research to make sure that the decisions you make are sort of as useful, objective, and as sensible as they possibly can be. So how do you do that? We all know that building a product in a vacuum is really not a great way to create products that users love. So as user researchers on the Google Play team, it's our job to help the product teams create experiences that are useful, usable, and desirable, or even magical for our users. So what I want to talk to you today is about how to make the research you're doing impactful. And the real key to doing impactful research is not some silver bullet method. It's not some fancy piece of kit. It's not necessarily some really complex process. The real key to doing impactful research is making sure you get the most out of the research you do and making sure that that research gets used in some way. So this talk is really just about some insanely practical methods and techniques that will help you go away and do better user research, and your product is going to be better because of it. This is about whatever you're doing right now and making sure that that investment pays off. If you get this right, everything else gets easier. OK. So how do you do impactful research? What is that? So I'm going to share with you today 3 mistakes that we kind of commonly see people make when approaching doing user research, and 3 methods and techniques from my experience as a researcher on the Google Play team to help you mitigate that risk and to make the research you do more impactful. So the mistakes, using the wrong methods at the wrong time, separating the research from the rest of the team, and asking the wrong questions, have fairly straightforward fixes. But fixing them will help you maximize the value of the research you do and make the most of the data you collect in order to make better decisions. OK, so mistake number 1. Using the wrong methods at the wrong time. So research is really just about asking good questions. And depending on where you are in the product lifecycle, you probably have different questions that need answered. That kind of makes sense, right? So as your product or feature evolves, so do the kind of questions that you need to ask. But one mistake we commonly see is people trying to ask either the same questions again and again as their product evolves, or trying to answer different questions with the same methods that really don't fit. So doing impactful research is not just about using impactful methods. It's really about picking the right methods for the questions you have and asking the right questions at the right time. So on my team, when we think about doing user research, we start by thinking whereabouts in the development process we are. And typically at a high level, there's only really 3 questions that we need to answer. The first one is what to build. The second one is how to build it. And the third one is did we succeed? And we call this strategic user research, design user research, and evaluative user research. So each of these questions has many, many, many different methods you can use. And picking the right method is going to help you maximize how useful that answer is to you. There's probably too many methods at each stage that I can cover in this talk, but let me walk you through some of the stuff that we do on Google Play, highlighting the kind of research we do at each stage. OK, so the first question we do, or the first question we ask, is what to build. This is kind of strategic user research. And really, the goal here is to help inform the product direction and uncover new opportunities. So what kind of research can you do at this stage? What methods can you do to help you use this? So one of our most powerful tools for this, on both the developer side and on the consumer side, are what we call kind of immersion or observational studies. And this is really just basically watching people use your product or feature, understanding what they're doing, and really asking them why they're doing what they're doing already. The method is really just watching your users and asking them why. At this stage in the process, the goal is to discover things you don't already know and to deep dive into topics that really matter to your users. Some of you may recognize my colleague Phil here, who's a researcher on the Play Console team. He does a lot of these kind of studies with developers. So what is the method here? How do you make the most out of these observational studies? It can really be as simple as just sitting down with a bunch of your users, getting them to show you them using your product or feature, and just watching them do it, asking them why they're doing it. But here's some few techniques that can help you make the most out of those sessions. The first one is not to ask leading questions. This is something we see people do all the time. When we invite sort of product or eng into these sessions, we see them asking questions where the answer that they want to hear is kind of embedded in the question that they're asking. So that's a really obvious one. Don't do that. The second one is not really to ask questions that can be answered with a yes or no answer. This is something else that we really commonly see. Like, do you want feature A or B? Yes or no. This is not great, as it really doesn't get you very rich data. You get one data point. If you ask questions that are more open-ended and encourage your users to talk, you'll really get much richer data out of them. And the last thing that we see people do is kind of drawing attention to specific things that they really care about. And this is bad as well, as it tends to change users' behavior when you're talking to them. So don't draw attention to things like features or particular interface elements that you kind of want to know about. You want to see if users talk about them naturally or see if they're noticing them at all. So observing your users in this way and kind of understanding why they're doing what they're doing is a really great way to kind of uncover new opportunities and kind of guide the strategic direction of your product. OK, so now you kind of have an idea of what to build. The next question we ask is how you build it. And this is the stage where you're trying to explore design concepts and trying to converge somehow to an ideal solution. So what research methods can you use here? So a method that we really like that helps us support design solutions really quickly is something that we call C-Write. C-Write is a version of traditional sort of rapid iterative testing and evaluative methodology, but it ensures cross-disciplinary collaboration on planning and executing the research. So C-Write builds on a traditional write methodology during which designs are evaluated in an agile, user-centered framework. And in write studies, multiple stakeholders collaborate in order to iteratively build and test prototypes. But in these write studies, stakeholders usually have to commit to maybe 1 or 2 weeks of involvement, which can be challenging. With C-Write addresses this by reducing the collaboration effort to about 2.5 days a week. And in that time, design problems are researched and new ideas are designed for and prototyped. With C-Write, you can kind of go from research to new design in 1 day, and key stakeholders collaborate on all UX phases. So what are the strengths here? Why is this good? The first one is that you get the entire team engaged in the process. And I'm going to talk about this more later, but that's a really key thing to making your research you do useful. The second thing is it allows really, really quick iteration. So the research insights that you get are used almost immediately, which ensures that they're going to be impactful to the product that you're building. Stakeholders are highly motivated with the opportunity to express opinions about what they've just observed in the research sessions, which we find is a great kind of motivator for people. And as the product owner, and being able to listen to and kind of engage in discussions with all stakeholders really creates really rich kind of design discussions. So the key here with C-Write is more that the insights are used immediately and the whole team are involved in the process. And that's a really key thing for making this research you do impactful. OK, so that's an example of how you can figure out what to build and put yourself in a good position to know that you're building the right thing. So the next question we ask is, did we succeed? Sort of by this point in the research, you're probably in a great position. You're confident that your product is serving some kind of need, and you've kind of ironed out all the usability creases and have about all the usability issues during kind of C-Write tests. So here you don't necessarily need to do anything complex. You really just need to pick whatever it is you measure and care about and measure to see if it's gone up. You're basically, well, in its simplest form, you're basically just asking, did we succeed? You can do this with your analytics or engagement data. You can do this with user satisfaction. And you're basically just trying to understand if users are engaged with and satisfied with the product you build. OK, so we covered a bunch of different research methods that you can use at each stage in this process. And as I said before, each question has many different methods that you can use, much more than I have a chance to cover in this talk. But hopefully we can kind of give you a flavor of how you can use different research methods at each stage. But the key here is that picking the right methods to use at the right time will maximize how useful the answer is to you, and then maximize the impact that research is going to have on your product. Using the wrong method at the wrong time can make the research you do more difficult. And the other key thing with this is the better job you do at answering each of these questions successfully reduces the amount of work you have to do at each stage. So if you do really good strategic research, you can go into your design research knowing that the product you're building is really serving a need. You do really good design research, you can go to market knowing that the usability and design creases are all ironed out, and then you really just have to measure in the evaluative stage. OK, so mistake number 2, separating research from the rest of the team. Sort of among researchers, it's common to hear research kind of being treated as a separate unit or kind of detached from the rest of the product and eng teams. And in that case, for the product and eng teams to become disconnected from the research that's happening. So it's really in these sort of situations, it's kind of easy for the research teams and the product teams to fall out of sync. And more likely that the research that gets done either isn't timely or doesn't answer key questions. So the thing that we do here is really to try and make the methods we use as collaborative as possible. You want your team members to feel ownership over the results. So good product research isn't really about an academic ivory tower. You don't want research to feel like it's being handed down from above, out with the product team. And collaboration is a huge part of avoiding that disconnect. If you get people involved in the research will be more valuable, and then it's more likely to be used. So this is an example picture of the Play Console team on a sort of research trip, research immersion trip a couple of years ago. And here we have designer, eng, BD, product manager, BD, eng, product manager, and researcher, all out together on a trip, going to visit users and to listen to their problems and try to figure out product strategy and decide where to go. So why is this good? Involving the team is really valuable for multiple reasons. Not only did they get a first-hand sense of the insights, team members get to meet face-to-face with users. There's lots of cross-functional collaboration, which is really good for a really good enhanced sense of team. So this is a quote from one of the engineers who participated in this study. So these studies are great, and the feedback is invaluable. I hope we can set up some continuous direct communication with developers in addition to these regular studies. We find that it's really good for engineers to be able to have first-hand contact with their users as well, as it really makes you feel good knowing that you're building something that's making a difference to someone's life. OK, so we've covered when to do research and some of the techniques you can use to increase the value of your research at every stage. So finally, I want to share some kind of techniques that you can do to help focus your research on topics that you know are going to be impactful. So as I said before, good research is really about asking good questions. There's no point in kind of asking the same question again and again. There's no point in asking questions that you don't necessarily need the answer to. And there's no point in asking too many questions that you collect too much data that then you can't action all of it. So in the Play Console team and in the Play team in general, we have a whole team of researchers that can help with this. We have experts in trying to decide what research needs to be done and what doesn't, and how to decide which questions are most valuable. And really a key thing, like if you want to be able to do impactful research, a really good thing to do is to hire good user researchers. You're not going to be able to learn how to code or learn how to product manage from a 20-minute talk. But if you don't have that, and you don't have a dedicated resource, and you're trying to decide where you should invest in research, how can you do that? So a good way to do this is to be looking at the reviews analysis section on the Google Play Console. So this is a great technique to uncover topics where you can improve your app based on the star rating or compared to your competitors. The topic analysis itself won't tell you how to improve something, but it will let you guide the research you do to areas where you know you can have impact. So you can look for areas where you need to understand more, i.e. why are lots of my bad reviews associated with the topic profile. You can find areas where you want to improve your star rating, and you can find areas where you can improve compared to your competitors. As I said, this is a great way to direct research to areas that can have real impact to your app. So how do you do that? So in this section, you can see how users review your app compared to a bunch of common topics against most of the similar apps in the same Play Store category as you. So these common topics can include things like design, profile, resource usage, speed, etc. So I'm going to walk through a few examples of how you might do research if you come across some kind of, if you found that these topics were having a negative effect on your rating in some way. So as I discussed earlier, taking deep dives into things that really matter to your users is one of the goals of doing strategic research. So it's a great time to understand why certain topics, if you don't know why, are pulling down your rating. So you can use some of the reasons listed in the reviews against something like resource usage or uninstalls to understand why your users are unhappy with those things. The chances are, if people have wrote reviews about it, it'll be something that users who participate in your research will have opinions on as well. And the real key here is to understand what the expectations were and whether or not they were met or unmet. For design and usability, this is a great time to use something like C-Write again. So you want to explore design issues, you want to explore usability, and kind of explore new design solutions. And again, you can use the topics mentioned in the individual reviews to help guide the actual research. And then to deep dive even further into topics that are really specific for your app, you can look at those really detailed topics that come out of your reviews. So that you can use these as probes in your research interviews to really understand why users are talking about really things that are very particular to your own app. OK, so what do I want you to take away from this talk? So doing impactful research is not just about some silver bullet impactful method. It's really about picking the right method to use at the right time in your development process to answer impactful questions that are going to be useful for your whole team. And as I said before, if you really want to invest in good impactful research, then it's really great to go and find good user researchers to hire and join your team. We're really nice people. It's really good, honestly. But if you can't do that, or if you don't have enough user research capacity just now, I hope that you'll find the kind of simple methods and techniques in this talk useful for going away to do research that can help you make your product or app much better. Thank you.